Welcome to Mr. Biz Radio, biz talk for biz owners. If you're ready to stop faking the funk and take your business onward and upward, this show is for you. And now, here's Mr. Biz, Ken Wentworth.
All right, welcome to another episode of Mr. Biz Radio with me, Mr. Biz Ken Wentworth. And for those watching, not just listening, you can see we actually have another in-studio guest. And he's actually been on the show maybe 2-3 times, maybe 4 times, something like that. It's been a while. And actually he was actually part of our 100th episode, which has been years ago now, but we did a special 100th episode where we had tips from experts, 100 tips, and we did 100 tips in 60 minutes. And Jason was one of our experts who came on and shared some of that with us. But our guest this week is Mr. Jason Case. He's an entrepreneur with extensive knowledge of digital marketing. He has built several successful businesses, and he's currently working on building a CRM and automation software that helps small businesses and franchise systems streamline their businesses. Jason, welcome back to Mr. Biz Radio.
Hey, thanks, Ken. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so it's been a while since you've been on, and as we typically do during the first segment, talking about your entrepreneur journey. I mean, we talked about a little bit in the introduction there, but walk us through some of your entrepreneur journey of what's brought you to where you're at now.
Yeah, so I mean, it started back in 2007, 2008, when I really became into that entrepreneur spirit. Started in the printing business, believe it or not. Had a kind of background in design, and I built that business internationally, shipping t-shirts and custom printed items all over the world. Sold that back in 2014 and kind of started on the digital marketing path. Never really knew I'd ever fall into that journey, but I grew to love it, building the printing business, and actually had more passion for that than printing and doing that stuff along the way. So my wife, I think, was one of the ones that encouraged me to go down the path of starting a marketing agency and helping other people grow their businesses online and do that. So in that process, I kind of started a CRM marketing automation software on the side and launched that back in 2018, 2019. That was originally, well, I guess it was 2018. And the first year was a very large beta client and helped them grow from 0 to 200 plus dealerships in about 10 months, 200 locations. And I mean, when we started, I was working with them, there's probably like 3 of us, and within a year grew to very large company, board of directors and so forth. So at the end of that year, we kind of tested the software very heavily and launched out to the rest of the market. And that's kind of my full-time gig now. So.
Well, the interesting thing to me, Jason, especially with people who listen to the show regularly or watch the show, is that what I heard from all that was that you had a printing business, and because you had a printing business, you had to learn some digital marketing. And then you learn digital marketing, and you're like, hey, this is pretty cool. I like this better than printing. So then you went into digital marketing. As you're doing digital marketing, and as I recall, the client that started using your CRM, you did some digital marketing for them, correct?
Yeah, I was actually kind of acting as their head of marketing and fractional CTO, if you want to call it that, at the time. So heading up their technology and marketing. But like within that 10-month year period, they grew so fast. I mean, they brought on a COO, a CTO, I mean, it was super rapid growth.
Yeah. Well, so again, you were doing digital marketing type stuff, CTO type stuff for them. And you're like, wait a minute. And they're like, hey, we need a CRM. And you'd kind of been dabbling with that a little bit in the background. Tell us a little bit how you got it. What caused you to say, I'm gonna build this CRM software platform? Because that's an interesting story too.
Yeah, well, I guess it goes all the way back to the printing days. And back then, I had a CRM marketing workflow automation software back then. And it's like anything, you start using it and you wish you had this and that.
Yeah.
And nothing, ever perfect out of the box. So I just had it in the back of my head someday, I would, kind of maybe go down that route and build my own software. Well, it just happened when I sold the business. I was like, okay, well, I got a little bit of extra cash. We'll put towards this and, start building it on the side. And that's how it started, And I knew the importance of having a software to automate a lot of things. And I think as much as I was drawn to the marketing side of things, I was probably equally aligned with just streamlining your business, right? Like keeping things organized, automating as much of the routine processes as you could. And, I kind of was frustrated with the flaws of some of these other systems where, sometimes the automation would add more work than actually simplifying things. So,
Yeah, it fixes these two things, but now you have another piece
Right.
over here you need to automate because it messes that up. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Interesting stuff. So I should mention that's how Jason and I met. Back in, gosh, we probably met in
2016, I was gonna say, yeah.
One of his business partners and I met him at a local networking event. Came in and met with Jason and him, and then it's funny how it all happened. And then I ended up becoming one of Jason's clients, and was working with him with all that stuff. And so, like I said, he's been on the show several times, and then I've seen the evolution of his processes as he's going through this whole sort of journey and using and developing the CRM system, which I also am a customer and use and have used for a few years now. So let's talk about that a little bit. So thepulsespot.com is the website you can go to check out more about this CRM system we're talking about. But he's being way too humble because he developed this and he's a tinkerer. And so he develops it, and then he'll have a client that comes on and they go, oh man, this kind of stinks because we wish it would do this. And Jason says, oh, we'll fix that. How many times has that happened since you started Pulse?
Quite a bit, but I'll say I was probably more flexible in the first year, obviously, with the big client than I am now.
Yeah.
Just because I had the vision that we go, the end vision kind of in mind, and obviously you pivot a little bit along the way, but at the same time, I try not to steer way off path because that's not really going to achieve your end goal of and throwing you off track. So,
Sure.
So I'm a little bit more, holding my ground a little bit more on that now. But yeah, we do, as long as it's like aligns with our all of our customer base, then I absolutely will consider it, and we customize things to that.
Yeah, and I didn't mean it. What I meant by that was you've constantly been optimizing it over the last few years. And you probably gotten to a point now where you're like, I'm pretty comfortable with this thing. You've developed some things and some different integrations.
Yeah.
So you're pretty comfortable with it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. 100%. I mean, yep. And we've learned a lot over the years working with everything from one person, businesses all the way up to $100 million plus businesses.
Yeah.
So it's a wide array of businesses, but learned a lot over those years of what each type of business needs in each of these different industries, and based on the size and how we can help them, and that's, I think, where the real reward comes in, of like taking somebody that might have used another CRM system in the past, but how systemize things for them in the future. So
yeah, we're going to hit a break here. We'll come back talking with Jason Case, thepulsespot.com.
If you would like to reach hundreds of thousands of business owners every week, Mr. Biz Radio can help. Our show airs globally 7 days a week for more than 25 hours across several internet radio stations, plus 20 plus podcast platforms. Also, video exposure on the new exclusive Mr. Biz Network streaming channel, which gets blasted to 100 plus streaming platforms, and the Mr. Biz YouTube channel, and our 350,000 social media followers multiple times every week. Join Mr. Biz Nation as an advertiser by emailing us at info@MrBizSolutions.com.
Are you ready to automate your business? Automation is the key to scaling a business and building wealth. It's also one of the most difficult things for a small business owner to do on their own. If you're looking for help with automation, Pulse Technology CRM can help. We have an exclusive offer for Mr. Biz Nation. We will build everything for free, even if it's a sophisticated funnel. Visit thepulsespot.com/Mr. Biz for this exclusive offer.
Got a question for Mr. Biz you want answered on air? Email it to info@MrBizSolutions.com. Now, once again, here's Mr. Biz.
All right, welcome back to the show. It is time, as always, at the top of the second segment for the Mr. Biz Tip of the Week. I actually got this. It's not a direct quote, but I got this idea from Jesse Itzler. Those of you guys who listen regularly or watch regularly know I admire him a lot. Actually, just got some time with him, some one-on-one time with him recently at an event down in Florida. But it made a lot of sense to me. So a lot of times, you set goals and you go, gosh, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. And you go through a day and you just have a crappy day. You don't get done. I'm going to make 10 phone calls a day, let's say. And you go through a day and you don't make any phone calls. You just have a really bad day, really crappy day. And the next thing you know, you're like, oh, crap, I totally missed my goal. And his whole thing is establish a weekly goal approach. So in that scenario, if you're going to make 10 calls per business day, you're going to make 50 a week. If Monday comes and goes, you make 0. Well, okay, don't worry about it. You got 4 days to make 50 calls. So now you make, 12-ish per day, and you can still reach your goal on a weekly basis. Don't sweat missing out on Monday. It's okay. Take more of a weekly approach. Don't fault yourself if you fall short on a particular day. Just, use the other 5 or 6 or 4, however many days, it depends, to reestablish that goal on what I need to do to get there and increase your volume for those days and still get to that goal and think of it more of on a weekly basis. So I thought that was pretty powerful. It keeps you from beating yourself up and saying, oh my gosh, and really getting discouraged. Keeps you kind of on pace with your goals and everything. So that is the Mr. Biz Tip of the Week. Again, this week we're talking with Mr. Jason Case. Find out more about the CRM system we're talking about, Pulse, at thepulsespot.com. That's thepulsespot.com. So Jason, I guess let's talk a little bit more about Pulse. So Pulse not only works for, you mentioned at the end of the last segment, I got limited employees, I got contractors, et cetera. I'm a pretty small operation myself, and I've been using it, works for me. You've got franchises you work with. This is pretty operationally broad-based, application.
Yeah. I mean, when we first got started with the first business, it was a dealership model, so similar to a franchise model.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of how we got down that path. So we do have a module that we can enable for franchise type systems that have multiple locations, and they want to kind of control all their locations to be able to easily share like assets such as like pre-built automations with them, pre-built email campaigns. Also see all the data from those franchises to help them, perform better and analyze that in real time, where a lot of franchise systems just don't have that. So we've involved that over the years quite a bit. And recently we were getting, we were getting other businesses that weren't actual franchise, but multi-location business. And actually just recently, towards the end of the last year, not even a multi-location business, they were a software business that sold software to business coaches, and each of those business coaches were on that. So they're independent businesses themselves, and they wanted to use the same model. So we have actually customized that quite a bit over the years, and I've recently been able to customize it so it's like a click of a button. A business can sign up and adjust those settings within their admin account to be whatever wording they want to use. So it's not franchise specific. It can be, whatever their model of their business is, but still be able to use that multi-location approach or multi-account approach to be able to share like pre-built workflows and assets with these different accounts. And it's worked out really well for us. It's a great business model on our end, because once you land one of those accounts, they bring on, different subscriptions underneath them. But it's a win-win for everybody, because, for those types of businesses, for franchise businesses or businesses like the one I just described, it's very easy for them, like once they're up and running, to bring on these new accounts.
Sure.
You know, it's the click of a button. Well, actually not even a click of a button, everything's loaded in when that account signs up.
Yeah,
So,
leads me, I should have mentioned, so we're going to talk in the next segment. We're going to dive a little bit more into that. We're going to talk about using automation to increase productivity, using digital marketing to close more sales, employee retention. It could be for that too as well, but customer retention, things like that. We're going to dive into that next segment. But the interesting part to me, think about if you have so I obviously seen demos of the multi-location version of Pulse. And what's interesting to me as a numbers nerd is being able to see, I'm even thinking about, I know someone we know here locally that used to own 5 or 6 different restaurants around town, being able to see those real-time statistics and say, gosh, what's working in Westerville? Why is it working so well in Westerville? Why is the Gahanna location not doing as well? And being able to share why it's working well in Westerville with Gahanna, like really quick, not a month later, not 6 weeks later.
Well, I can actually tell you how important it is. One of the accounts that we were working with, we got real-time reporting set up in their business, and they were using Excel sheets before. Everybody's similar or familiar with that process.
Yeah,
it's just very time consuming.
Sure.
Manually entering that data all the time. And then if you enter that data wrong, it throws your reports off, as you know.
Yeah.
Huge. Where when you set that up in a CRM system and you keep that process automated, as long as it's set up right, then there's no foul up, right?
Sure.
Like that data is updating real time. We set that up for an account, and once it was set up, we saw a fall, like where they thought their best performing ad campaigns were actually their worst. And we presented it to the COO once we got everything set up, and they're like, no, those numbers can't be right. And I'm like, I'm positive.
Yeah.
We double checked those numbers that those are okay. So we went through everything, double checked it with the COO. She was blown away, and she put it by the COO. So the next morning I followed up with her, to see what they wanted to do with things and how that meeting went with the CEO. And she's like, we fired that marketing agency. It saved them $10,000 a month, and they're able to allocate that $10,000 to their better performing marketing channels, which they understood.
Right.
Once they had that data, it made a huge difference. And having that stuff updated in real time, where you don't have to manually input data or miss it, because a lot of times you just don't have the time to do that. So then your reporting falls back. So.
Yeah, so it works super well for a single, entity business, obviously, but especially in a multi-location. And again, I'm just thinking myself, like seeing the dashboard and knowing what it looks like and being able to put whatever you want on the dashboard. You customize the dashboard, the things that really move the needle for you, whatever your role was in the organization, and being able to see those things very quickly. Think about that, guys. 10 grand of reallocating $10,000 of marketing spend. And if you're getting, 1.5, 2, 3 times return on that, think about the impact that has on sales just by figuring that out quickly and not crapping through money over 3-4 months. It's super powerful. We're going to hit a break here, guys. Again, we're going to come back. Jason's going to give us, you hear all his expertise in these areas with different types of businesses, especially now working with Pulse and all the different types of industries he's working with. He's getting even more experience with this stuff. But we're going to talk about how to use automation to increase productivity, use sales and marketing automation to close more sales, and then using increasing customer retention by using a CRM. And I know that sounds obvious, but man, there's a lot of super powerful ways that are very similar to what we just talked about. So come back after the break on Mr. Biz Radio.
How would you like to have direct access to Mr. Biz to help you run your business more profitably and more efficiently? At MrBizSolutions.com, you get live access to not only Mr. Biz, but also several of his hand-picked and trusted business experts, each with 20 plus years of experience to help you optimally manage and grow your business. That's just the start of where Mr. Biz Solutions begins. Learn more at MrBizSolutions.com. That's MrBizSolutions.com.
Business owners have a continually growing to-do list with little time for revenue-producing activities. With Check Off Your List and their experienced team of virtual assistants, you can focus on growing your business. Visit checkoffyourlist.com to learn how Check Off Your List's skilled team can handle your day-to-day tasks like social media, bookkeeping, calendar maintenance, and much more. Contact Check Off Your List at checkoffyourlist.com or call 888-262-1249 to see how their virtual assistants can help you live to work rather than work to live.
Check out all three of Mr. Biz's best-selling books at MrBizBooks.com. Now, once again, here's Mr. Biz.
All right, welcome back to the show. And I should mention again, you can find out more about Pulse, the CRM system we've been talking about, at thepulsespot.com, thepulsespot.com. Go out and check that out. Anyone who's paying attention and doesn't skip through the commercials may have noticed between the first and second segments, there's actually a Pulse commercial that runs on Mr. Biz Radio. You guys have probably heard it before. It was funny, Jason probably hasn't heard the spot for a while, and during the break, he was like, I need to update that a little bit. We need to freshen up a little bit. So interesting having Jason being on this side of things, hearing it in real time. So Jason, talk to us a little bit about how we can use automation to some of the things I mentioned, especially with increasing productivity and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, the last scenario I just explained about reporting, obviously that's a bigger company, spending a lot of money on advertising, but you can use that for small businesses as well. Like one scenario, I was just meeting with a client last week that just came on, and they were setting up their KPIs to track, how many meetings were booked per week, right? To meet their KPIs, and how many meetings, actually lead to closed business, and we have a unique reporting module where you can set up custom formulas similar to Excel, but you're using the data inside of your CRM system, or even bringing in outside data, and makes it update real time. So, you don't have to be a big business to leverage that real time reporting scenario. It's just understanding your goals, right? Like you were talking about earlier, right? Like how many calls I need to make this week.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's great, but you also need to attribute that to how it's working to acquire customers,
Sure,
right?
yeah.
And being able to look at each of your strategies or channels that you're doing and how it's performing. And yeah, so our system obviously automates that process once you get that set up and helps out. But there's a lot of other scenarios too from I'm thinking like one of the easiest things that a lot of businesses just don't implement is feedback referral campaigns. And it's such an essential one, and it's probably one of the easiest things to grow your business if you have a group of customers or your established business, putting automation in that process. So we have kind of like a pre-built campaign that we can put in place, and you can customize the wording however you want. But the way it essentially works is, once you're done with the job, or if you're a service-based business, maybe after you've done business with them after a few months, you trigger this and it sends back a feedback request. And then based on the feedback that you get from that person, we use automation and decision conditional logic to send them down the path, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if they leave positive feedback and say they would recommend you, that automatically dumps them into a campaign and then asks them for a Google review, or and then introduces them to a referral campaign, right? And incentivizes for referrals, completely automated. Where if you're trying to do this stuff manually, you're just not going to do it.
Right.
I mean, if you ask any business how, like they say, majority of business comes in from word of mouth, and you ask them, well, great, how are you doing that?
Right.
Listen, well, it just happens, right? But if you put processes and automation behind that, that's like a easy strategy to increase your annual revenue if you're an established business. And then obviously, if for some reason you get negative feedback, you don't send them down that route, you send them down another route, which would create a task for whoever is working with that person to follow up with them, see if you can, make things right. Things do happen sometimes, and then
Sure.
if you grow, things slip through the crack, but that makes sure that you're catching that stuff, try to make it right, and, helps
Well, so two things I'll mention. So and this statistic's, I think, about 4 years old now, so it's probably a little different. But one thing that people overlook so often, and it touches on what Jason just mentioned, 62% for a small business, small and medium-sized business, 62% of new revenue comes from existing customers. That's in the form of them getting a deeper wallet share with them, but also referrals. And if you don't have a system in place to do that, and especially automated, like he's talking about, this is completely automated. It's no touch. So you're tapping into that additional 62% with almost no effort whatsoever. And then customer retention. You know, if you, in that scenario where it's automated and it automatically goes when someone's ticked and says, I'm not happy with it, this sucked and whatever. And so obviously you don't want to refer, but you can rectify that situation possibly. And it gives you that feedback unless if you don't have that in place, someone's pissed and then you don't follow up with them. And then you don't find out until they cancel and they go, we're done. And you're going, and they're like, forget it. It's too late. I've already got a new one.
Right. Makes the customer feel like you care. We've actually taken that a step further over the last year or so with a few of our clients with handwritten cards. So there's a number of companies out there that use robots to actually write the cards with ink pens. So I'm sure like a lot of people are familiar with like send out cards or companies like that, but you can tell they're printed cards. Like it came actually through a press and was printed. These actually use an ink pen to write the cards, but we can completely automate that process. So we put steps in the automation of referral campaigns. So if a referral leads to close business, that automatically triggers automation to send an email out, but then automatically triggers API call to send out this handwritten card where, you know, it's personalized too, because we're sending that data from the CRM, personalizing that card, thanking them for the referral to Sally Sue or whoever. And it blows people right. I mean, that's like how you can really personalize things with automation and making things authentic. It's great. You can also take that a step further, not just with referral campaigns, but also with like maybe sending out handwritten cards to your top 100 clients every year, you know, just thanking them for their business and how much you appreciate them and stuff like that, because it actually looks like you wrote the card.
Sure. Once
they know my handwriting and no, I didn't do it.
Yeah. Well, and I think that the powerful piece of that is, you know, I talk about this all the time, is you just got to be, well, hopefully you're a lot, but even to win business, to keep business, you got to be a little better than everybody else. You got to be a little better in your competition. To attract the best employees, you have to be a little better as an employer, to become an employer of choice. As an example, in this case, to keep business. If you're in a highly competitive business, I mean, how many people send out handwritten cards? But when you get them, how do you feel? Right? I'm not a big warm and fuzzy kind of guy or whatever, but yeah, I think it's kind of cool because no one else does it. It's that little extra thing that kind of pushes you over.
Makes you feel appreciated.
Yeah, for sure. 100%. Because again, people don't do it. You know, if anything, you get an automated email or something like that.
Right.
Getting that is like that extra step that just takes things, you know, that much further. Good stuff. Again, thepulsespot.com. Go out to thepulsespot.com. So Jason, we're running out of time here, but I got a kind of a personal question, not super personal, but if you were going to be deserted on a desert island, what is one thing that you would take with you? Not family, not my wife, not my son, not what's one thing that you would like have to take with you?
Deserted island. Caught me off guard.
That's the beauty of it, man.
Water.
There you go. See, practical. This guy's he's a problem solver, man. Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. That question is interesting because to me, at least, it is, because a lot of people are like, oh, I'd take a radio so I can listen to music. I'm like, well, you're in the middle of the ocean. Maybe you can't even get a signal. Like that might not work. And well, I take my cell phone. Well, you're only good until your battery dies, right? There's no place to charge it, you know, but you have a very practical answer. Again, we've been talking this week with Jason Case. Go out to thepulsespot.com, thepulsespot.com. Jason, thanks so much for coming on the show. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, awesome. Guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Have a great week. And don't forget, as always, cash flow is king.
To become part of Mr. Biz Nation, follow him on all social media platforms or never miss a show by going to MrBizRadio.com. If you prefer free video content, visit the Mr. Biz YouTube channel or check out his streaming channel, which is available on 100 plus streaming platforms at MrBizNetwork.com.